Hey buddies, Mr. Pugly here, coming at you with another Wonderlands video. Today I want to showcase my Infinite Blizzard build for Chaos level 50. As you guys saw at the beginning, once again this build is able to melt all the raid bosses pretty easily and all the other bosses just go down in a few seconds. This build primarily optimizes Cryo since we're using Blizzard, and because of that we are using Spore Warden with Brrzerker. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch in the top right. You have no idea how much helps me out. And let's get into the video.
Legendary? Whoa! No way, dude!
So first things first, as in tradition, let's go over the skill tree. So let's go over the Brrzerker skill tree first. We got Ancestral Frost to increase our frost damage by 20%. We got 3 out of 3 on Icebreaker, so we deal more damage to enemies that are slowed, which is going to be constant due to the fact that we are 1 Brrzerker, because that means we're going to get the Enrage bonus, so Cryo on all our guns. All of our guns we're using are going to be Cryo, and Blizzard does Cryo as well. If you guys aren't familiar, Icebreaker is a unique multiplier at the end of the damage formula that is very, very powerful because of the fact that it is multiplicative to everything else in the damage formula, which makes it super duper strong. Next, we got the Old Ways. The Old Ways gives us damage reduction and more damage as we get closer to the target. This is all damage dealt, so this helps everything on our build. We got 3 out of 3 on Instinct. Reload speed is very important on any build, and I feel like 3 out of 3 on Instinct always feels good on this build because you're able to constantly stay in the fight. Since you're reloading so fast, you're not going to have a lot of downtime with this build. We got Relentless Rage, which means that if you're in Save Your Soul, you're going to be able to be in Save Your Soul for longer, and if you get back up in Save Your Soul, you're going to have Enrage again, which is excellent, which means obviously more total damage for you. And 1 out of 5 on Ancient Fury. I like the area damage for my Blizzards, but it's mainly for any area damage guns we like to use on the build. The maximum HP doesn't matter to me. Next, we got 5 out of 5 on Eagle Eye to increase our gun damage, 5 out of 5 on Affinity to increase our ability damage, which is obviously going to be our Blizzard as well as Play the Angles. This got buffed recently, I believe, which means we're going to deal some more damage than we were before. Got 4 out of 5 on Bullseye, mainly as filler, but it is nice to have that extra gun critical hit chance on our build, even though it's not that much. If you guys aren't familiar, the gun critical hit chance right here, it says 48%. That basically equates to an additional 2.5 crit hit chance technically, because it's multiplicative and the formula, blah, blah, blah. But basically, we're only getting a 2.5 increase on a critical hit chance with our guns, so that's why it's filler. But I digress. We got 3 out of 3 on Quiver or Holding. Once again, I like to use this as filler, but it is nice to have more magazine size and ammo regeneration to shoot a little bit longer. We got the Revive Pet ability, 3 out of 3 on Windrunner to increase our fire rate, and movement speed feels very nice on this build, increases the flow and fun value of the build, if that makes sense in my opinion. I like going fast basically. And then we got 6 out of 3 Wrath of Nature, which albeit was nerfed is still very strong. Don't downplay this ability. It is still extremely strong and very important on all Spore Warden builds. We got 1 out of 1 on Headhunter to increase the damage when we hit critical hit areas. And then finally, Play the Angles. Play the Angles gives us very easy cheese, so you'll occasionally just see an enemy just die out of nowhere. Also allows us to proc Wrath of Nature very easily. Now, I'm going to give you 4 options of guns that you can actually use on this build. Normally, I always tell you to just use a Cryo Nightshade, which is still my preferred gun on this build, but I'm going to give you 3 other options. Now, the first option is a Twisted Launcher, which is really just for utility, but it is nice to apply immediate soak to enemies if you're looking to not apply it with the armor choice that we have. We got a Loot Dite, which is very, very strong. It is able to do area damage, which means it's going to get some area damage bonus from Ancient Fury, so this is a very strong gun to use on most builds, but especially on this build because we really heavily invest in cryo damage. Got a Cryo Nightshade. It is just so powerful. It is one of the best guns in the entire game. Definitely use this. You already know how much I love this gun. It is just super, super good. If you're not familiar, it's similar to a Sandhawk from Borderlands 2 in cryo version. And then we had the liquid cooling. I still feel like the liquid cooling is good. You just gotta build around it. It obviously isn't as good as it once was, but it still is able to deal a significant amount of damage whenever I use it on this build, so you can definitely still use it. It's only volatile. You probably want it in Primordial or even Ascended, but I don't have that. All the anointments that are important on your damage dealing guns are on action skill start, increase damage dealt by 20% for 20 seconds. This allows you to double dip with play the angles, as well as just giving you a well needed all damage dealt on your build. Next we have a Goblin Pickaxe. I actually use 2 different Goblin Pickaxes depending on what I'm doing. If I'm looking to kill a boss just like that, I like to use an Echo version. So for bossing, I primarily use the Echo Goblin Pickaxe. But if I'm mobbing, I like to use this Goblin Pickaxe, which has melee attacks restore 5% of your action skill cooldown rate, because you want to have Blizzard up as soon as possible. The reason why this is more important during mobbing is due to the fact that you're probably going to see your Blizzard is going to go away before you actually complete a chamber room, so you want a way to get it back really quickly. And the one with Ancient has a incredibly high attack speed, which means you're going to be able to get your Blizzard up all the time, hence the name Infinite Blizzards. But the important part about the Goblin Pickaxe is it also has the increased movement speed, the spell cooldown, and action skill cooldown rate. These 2 cooldown rates are going to help us decrease our burst window downtime, which is going to be our Buffmeister and Blizzard. So you're going to be able to get those back really quickly with the Goblin Pickaxe. Next, we have the tried and true mood rings on this build. We have SMG critical hit damage as well as pistol critical hit damage if I so need it. Obviously, these 2 rings are the same because you can obviously just get 1 ring and then duplicate it for yourself by putting it in the bank and reloading your save. So there's no reason not to run 2 of the same rings unless you're looking for 2 different secondary stats, which for most of the builds I do, I never really want to do. So that's why they're identical. Oh, and before I forget, the enchantment on both my Goblin Pickaxes are while action skill is active, increase elemental damage by 35%. The reason for this is pretty obvious. While Blizzard is up, you're going to get this bonus, and Blizzard lasts for a pretty decent amount of time, and you're going to have it up very often. So you're going to get this effect almost all the time. Next, we have a Body Ruin. While action skill is active, increase frost damage by 50%. I like to use this as my mobbing. It's cool to get your Blizzards get fire on them as well, which is just really like a niche little thing that I think is cool. But you could also get a large amount of damage bonus by getting that 20% bonus fire damage by just attacking the enemies around. Also increases our survivability due to the fact that it has 50% of your HP restored whenever you kill an enemy, which is excellent. But for bossing, I like to use a Cursed Wit because it's very easy to set up ward depleted plays, so you just deplete your ward and then go ham on the bosses. I don't need to explain that much because you guys are already familiar with that, I'm sure. But the enchantments are, while action is active, increase frost damage by 50%. Next, we're still rocking a Primordial Sacrificial Skeep with frost damage and Berserker power and all damage dealt. Berserker power is going to be the key thing that you want on your amulet because the enrage bonus is pretty effective. It might not seem a lot, just an extra 4% on enrage, but every little percent matters when it's a bonus damage, especially since we're hitting around thousands and millions of damage very easily. So never downplay Berserker power. It's very powerful in my opinion, as well as a double roll all damage dealt on the amulets. Another choice you can actually use on this build that I'm considering, but I haven't found a good protagonizer, is the protagonizer. Basically what you do is you put all your points into attunement and then strength and then midway wisdom or even midway into intelligence, but you know, that's a discussion for another video. But basically you're going to get a lot of ability critical damage, and that is going to result in your play the angles damage being really high. Personally, I like the security of the Sacrificial Skeep, especially when I do Cursed Wit plays, but the protagonizer is an extremely valuable amulet that you could probably use on this build and deal a lot of damage if you so wish. I probably would have killed the bosses in the montage earlier, quicker if I did use the protagonizer, but I don't have an ideal one yet. I'm probably going to be looking to use this when we make our From the Shadows Play the Angles build that I normally always do with Stabbomancer. Next we have a Primordial Jacketed Buffmeister. This is going to be a Zap and Pew. Now the reason why Zap is very important on a Cryo Buffmeister is because Cryo Buffmeister always does spell damage source. If you're using any other Buffmeister, they're going to be gun if you deal gun damage, spell if you deal spell damage, and ability if you deal ability damage, and same with melee. And I believe that covers all the damage categories, but the Cryo Buffmeister is very unique. No matter what damage source that you deal, it's going to be spell damage source. So Zap is going to be 80% more spell damage, which means it's going to hugely benefit your Cryo Buffmeister. It has the enchantment on spell cast, increase gun damage by 30% for 10 seconds. And then finally, this is a very important thing. You're going to want to get a Cape of Tides of any kind. This is going to make your build deal so much damage. So the Cape of Tides applies a debuff with Soak, which is 50% more damage. The Soak multiplier is multiplicative on all the damage you dealt due to the fact that it's in the debuff category in the damage formula, which means it's going to be very valuable on your build. Basically, you're going to see Soak happening all the time with your blizzards, with your dots, since it procs off dots, and very easily from the Cryo Nightshade. Once again, the Cryo Nightshade is very valuable on this build because it deals, one, a lot of damage, it does a lot of pellets, which means it's going to get 4 instances of the Buffmeister, since there's 4 pellets, 4 chances to proc Play the Angles, and 4 chances to proc Cape of Tides. It's just super valuable on this build. Once again, that's just one of the reasons why the Cryo Nightshade is just so powerful on this build and a lot of different builds. But right here we have 2 out of 5 on our Squall, which increases our fire rate, which is nice. But the important part is that you want to get 3 out of 3 Wrath of Nature to increase your damage as much as possible, because you're going to get Wrath of Nature procs all the time from Play the Angles and Blizzards. So it's very important to get 3 out of 3 Wrath of Nature over anything on a Cape of Tides here. But we have gun damage, area damage, and all damage dealt. Area damage helps the loot dite as well as blizzard damage. And the last thing I need to show is how well this build performs on a normal instance of mobbing. So we're going to go with a regular mobbing, elite portal, and then we're going to do the area where it spawns like a bunch of enemies all at once, if you know what I mean. A good example on how much damage you can do with this build is that normally Dragon Lord statue does take a little bit to actually kill. So normally with this build, it only takes like a couple of seconds to kill. Of course, it has the invulnerability frames, which is a bit unfortunate, but you can just clear it in just 5 seconds, and you're going to clear any enemy you see in just a few seconds as well. And it is always fun using this build with the Cape of Tides because of the fact that you're going to see all these like water novas coming out of the enemy occasionally like that, and it's just so fun to see that because it's just like another sense of style on the build that just makes it look more fun, at least for me. I don't know, big explosions and like making your screen look a little bit like cluttered is always fun. It makes you feel like, oh dang, my build is like really powerful or something, but that's just kind of how my brain works, I guess. So next room we're going to make elite, and since we have our blizzard down, I can actually show you what I mean by infinite blizzard with the goblin pickaxe. So since we don't have our blizzard up, I'm just going to take the time by meleeing this target just a couple of times, and we're going to have blizzard up once again. And the sacrificial skeep is out, making us basically invulnerable, which isn't necessarily the case, but it allows us to health gate very easily by healing us to maximum every 2 seconds, so we can just, you know, go worry free and not have to worry about dying at all, which is awesome. So anytime you're blizzard up, you want to activate your Buffmeister. Most of the time you're going to get your Buffmeister to proc or come off a cooldown before you actually get your blizzard off cooldown. So you're going to be able to spam the Buffmeister a little bit more than you would with the blizzard, which is nice. So you want to utilize that as much as possible. Before I forget, I don't want to forget to show my myth ranks. So I have a total of 383. We got 96 in Druid, 95 in Archmage, 96 in Blade Master, 96 in Deadeye, and finally here are my hero stats. We got maxed out Strength, maxed out Wisdom, and midway into Intelligence. This allows us to get our Buffmeister quicker because we already have some instances that allows us to get our Blizzard quicker due to the fact that we have Ancient on our Goblin Pickaxe. Now, one key thing I really like about the Blizzard build is if you kill an enemy, the Blizzards are actively going to seek a new target. So if you're like me and have a hard time at focusing on the screen and not looking at the minimap, you can see that the Blizzard is going to actively seek out new targets. So you can kind of just follow the Blizzard around and expect to just kill a target because it's going to obviously seek out a new target. So you don't have to really worry about looking for any enemies. You just follow to where the Blizzard is going, or even to where it's kind of going, and then you can run past it and be like, oh, there's an enemy. And then finally, here is a mob rush room. So I'm just going to summon the Blizzard like normal, and I'm just going to kind of stay back and try to spray the area because we're going to occasionally just see the enemies explode, not only from the Blizzard or the random bullets due to the fact that the Play the Angles is also proccing, and we just about cleared this room in just a few seconds. And now that the boss is spawned, all I'm going to do is just try my best to focus on the enemy. And we did a random, I think that was like 10 million out of nowhere, which is, you know, the fun part about using a Play the Angles. Normally, I feel like the mid boss right there dies a lot quicker, so that wasn't the best example on how quickly we could clear this room, but we were still able to clear in maybe like under 20 seconds, so that's pretty good on my book. Once again, I implore you to try out the Blizzard build. It is always fun in every single chaos level. I've always been able to make it work. I've had people say like I couldn't make it work, so hopefully this guide helps you make it work on chaos level 50. It doesn't feel any different than chaos level 35 or 20. It performs the same, it kills people the same. It's like the chaos level never happened, which is funny. But as always, a big shout out to the members who make these videos possible. We got Jason Noodles, Clairvoyance, Rick Iglesias, Josh Dig, 31 Bar 70, Grey Wolf, Wishkeeper, Leska, Cameron, and Benjamin. These are the people who support me as little as $5 a month on Patreon or YouTube, and you can also support me as little as $5 a month by clicking the link in the comments or description or in the top right to become a member. The more members we have, the closer I get to becoming full-time, which means more videos for you guys. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I hope y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.
And the last shall be first to immerse in a pass out heat, facing him out with a moxie melt till he woke up drowning in tchotchke hell. War in a cave with a torch on a wall, then a window arrangement of porcelain dolls.